Hey guys, welcome back to another voiceover day vlog. My voice is a little dry and a little affected, cracks a little bit because I did a really long video just a second ago. And yeah, it's also hot outside and my allergies are killing me. So if I sound a little weird today, that's why. Don't be concerned about anything else. Anything other than just my throat being dry is fake news, okay? So I wanted to cover something that is a very big deal and is a unique experience that someone was sharing with me. And I'm not going to mention their name. I don't want to mention anybody else's name and then talk about their problems. It's their story. It's their issues. But I do want to talk about the topic just in case there are other people with similar problems, similar circumstances. And someone came to me for coaching. I've been doing a back and forth email. And they wanted to know how they could get into voiceover based on their living situation. And they were in they lived in a hoarder's house. They lived in a hoarder environment. And though I don't know completely what a hoarder's house would look and feel like, I have some experience with that. My parents weren't necessarily hoarders. They were just messy. Very many years, quite a few years of my life, they were lazy, and they were what they described as collectors of stuff that had no value. And in places in California and in some places that we lived in Texas when I was still living with them, up to the point that I moved out. When I first moved out, there was so much relief. I lived with anxiety. I lived with this constant achiness and this wanting to get out, like feeling trapped. And if you watch any of my very, very early videos, like some of the first videos I post on YouTube were when I was living there. And there are some shots when you can actually see some of the garbage just piled up all over the place. And that was frustrating, and that was very hard to sleep and live with and deal with. Also, a lot of this stuff collected dust. My allergies were always going crazy. And then when I moved into an apartment, I kept it very tidy, very neat, very clean. And vacuumed every other day, all that kind of stuff. Became a little OCD just because of how much I had gone through. Now I've kind of relaxed to where it's like a middle ground. Stuff is still where it's supposed to. It's organized. There's like one place that's like, when I come in, that's where I like just plop my keys and whatever was in my pocket when I come in. It's kind of like catch-all area. But the rest of, the apartment is clean. And a lot of that is because I used to live in a similar situation. My dad's dad was a hoarder. My dad's dad was more of a hoarder. When he passed away and we had to clean out his house and all this kind of stuff, it took a very long time to go through all of it. And he was from the Depression. So he had this idea of he when he was a child, he lived with very little, and now there's abundance. And so he kind of more or less was packing stuff away the same way, squirrels or hamsters pack dry food away because they don't know if they're going to be able to eat later. They don't know if they're going to be able to find more food later or if the seasons are going to change or whatever. It's basically that kind of mindset. And this person who was emailing me lived in that kind of situation. And I'm trying to help them. I'm trying to help them kind of, get some kind of arrangement for a voiceover thing, and then hopefully maybe they'll be able to move out at some point. That's the best thing that can happen to someone who lives with a hoarder. If you can't get that person help for their problem, then the best thing that you can do is get out, because there's no point in you going down with them and you being taken down in that kind of environment that they've made for themselves that they can't live without, for whatever the reason. My family is way better about this kind of stuff. It wasn't as big or as much of a psychological problem or a mental problem that it was. It was more just, we had a lot of stuff. We didn't throw a lot of stuff away, and we didn't really tidy or clean up, and everything just piled up. And as much as I would try to clean up and rearrange, the rest of the house was chaos. And that's just the kind of stuff that, kind of drives you crazy. And living in that kind of situation will be constantly on your mind. And you'll constantly have this anxiety. Now, that anxiety, for me, was beneficial in a small way because it motivated me to do other things in hopes of moving out and building my own life and my own career. It was kind of a motivation. It was like, I really need to do something with my life because I don't want to live like this. I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want to stay here. I have to get out. I have to do something. And so that was beneficial to me in a small way. That's not going to be the same thing for everybody, but that was beneficial for me in a small way. So the best thing to do is to move out. If you are in a similar situation, and it doesn't have to be the hoarding thing. It doesn't have to be the hoarding thing. It doesn't have to be chaos. It doesn't have to be, filth. It doesn't have to be disorganization. It can be living with, family that it has serious OCD, and that kind of, non-healthy kind of OCD, or someone who's bipolar, or you have a roommate who is an alcoholic or something like that. That kind of toxic environment of any kind, you have to get away from that. You have to get out. And you can't keep thinking, oh, it'll just naturally change, or, I'll just get used to it. If something isn't done, it's not going to. Humans are creatures of habit. Humans are creatures of, this is how life is. I'm just going to deal with it. I'm just going to adapt. We're the most adaptive species. Well, okay, not the most adaptive species. I think tardigrades are probably number one. But as far as like mammals, we're incredibly adaptive. We live on all, hemispheres. We live in all sections of the planet. We have people stationed and living in places where you can hardly breathe, and where it's always freezing, and like places we're not supposed to be living. We're still there. We're adaptive, and we get used to some things. We get used to, no matter how awful it is, no matter how terrible something is, human beings can adapt to it and just get used to it. So don't expect it to change naturally. You have to do something. You have to take action. You have to, if your life isn't good or isn't what you want it to be, you have to change it. It's not up to other people. It's not up to someone else to make your life better in any way. You always have some level of control. Maybe not all the control. There are always going to be some things that are out of your control. There are always going to be some things that you can't change. But to say that you can change nothing, I believe is impossible. Long story short, if you want a career in voiceover and you live in an environment where that can't really happen, or is preventing that from happening, then you need to motivate yourself to get out of that situation. If you live in an environment where you can't really record quietly, you can't really do the things that you want to do to actually build a career, then focus on a day job. Focus on a day job and education, and work your way to a point where you can get out of that situation. Rather than stressing yourself out over trying to make that toxic environment work, get out of that toxic environment. Move. And I'm not saying that the living situation that I was in was the worst, or that it was completely toxic, or that it was bad for me. But in order for me to have a career, I needed to move. I needed to get away from them. Obviously, you shouldn't live with your parents always anyway. But it motivated me to get an apartment that had a quiet space, to, work at a day job at the exact same time that I was trying to build my career so that I could fund all this, and then slowly but surely put in time to build that career. You can't go from a terrible, terrible living situation with so many limitations to immediately having a career. There are going to be more steps. And it's totally fine if it takes a while. Let it take a while. If it takes longer for you to get to a really good situation where you're living by yourself, just let that happen. You'll be very grateful that you waited, because then pursuing your career and your talents and all that kind of stuff is going to be easier, and it's going to be less stressful, and it's going to make it a lot more fun. So what's the goal? What's the point of this? What's the message? Get out of toxic environments. Get out of situations that you can't control. Do what you can to change your circumstance and your situation. And I know there are some people that are in much, much harder situations and much harder circumstances, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure everyone's case is different. But for the majority of people, for the majority of all of us, we're really just kind of getting used to living in less than desirable circumstances. And then we just get anxious, and we get depressed, and we get frustrated, because nothing is changing, even though we're not changing anything. So that's the message. That's the goal. That's the objective. Do what you can to change your circumstance. Don't get depressed. Don't get stressed out. If you need to get a day job, you should always get a day job. You should always get a day job. You should always pursue education, at least high school, and then work on getting out of that situation. If that's the biggest thing preventing you from being happy and successful, that thing has to change. You have to deal with that immediately. So anyway, it's a little bit more of an emotional one. I hope you guys learned something. If this helps somebody, at least one person, then good. Then I'm happy. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Totally fine. But if you give it a thumbs down, you have to say why. Otherwise, it doesn't count. Subscribe if you're new, bell for notifications, and leave down in the comment section below if you have any questions or want to suggest any other videos or any other topics. Totally fine. If you need any coaching, my email is in the video description. And until next time, peace.